Welcome back. We are doing the science and religion discussion of Richard Wurmbrand. Last week we did the science and religion discussion of Nicky Gumbel. What we're showing is that atheists do not have a monopoly on science. Hallelujah. If science seeks truth, then atheists are out the window because they've already denied the basic truth of reality that Yahweh is. Yahweh is. God is. And He is the rewarder of those who diligently seek Him. Okay. We're on page 149 of the Answer to the Atheist Handbook by Richard Wurmbrand. The case of Lord Rayleigh and Sir William Ramsay is known. They both found a nitrogen by different methods, but there was always a slight difference between the atomic weights. They maintained their discordant results. They did not try to harmonize them. They saw no catastrophe in the disagreement. In the end, the conflict between the two results proved profitable for science. In the nitrogen of one, argon, an element unknown till then, was discovered. We should not fear a conflict between religion and science as a whole. We have room in our hearts for all of reality. We would apply to this conflict the words of Jesus. Let both grow together until the harvest. We would grant freedom to two conflicting opinions. All this is hypothetical, because there must be something wrong with the discovery by my opponents of the terrible conflict between science and religion. Most scientists know nothing about the conflict. With all due regard for the academic degrees of my adversaries, they will have to admit that Einstein knew at least a little bit more science than they. The proof is that our universe bears the name of Einstein and not the name of the authors of atheist things. Einstein speaks about a higher intelligence which reveals itself through nature. Perhaps you would like to know what the great physicist Max Planck says in his scientific autobiography. We quote his words: "Religion and natural science are fighting a joint battle in an incessant, never-relaxing crusade against skepticism and against dogmatism, against disbelief and against superstition. And the rallying cry in this crusade has always been and always will be, unto God." That was Max Planck. The authors of the Atheist Handbook are men of science. Then let them give a scientific explanation of the fact that such great scientists knew nothing about a conflict between science and religion. Max Planck even calls the contradiction between science and religion a phantom problem. The Atheist Handbook makes this sweeping assertion. Between science and religion there has always been an unceasing and implacable fight. They will never be able to substantiate this. I quoted Einstein and Planck. What about other scientists? Did they know something about the conflict? Sir Isaac Newton belongs to another century, but for all practical purposes we still live in a Newtonian universe. To mock his infidel friends, he made in his laboratory a solar system in miniature. An unbeliever asked him, "Who made it?" Newton answered, "Nobody." "Lies, stupidity," the infidel answered. "Tell me the truth. Who made it?" Then Newton replied, "It is nothing but a puny imitation of a much grander system, and I am not able to convince you that this mere toy is without a designer and a maker." Did you profess to believe that the great original from which the design is taken has come into being without a maker? Tell me, by what sort of reasoning do you reach such an incongruous solution? The atheist professors acknowledge that Newton finishes his fundamental scientific work, the mathematical principles of natural philosophy, with the words about the ruling of the powerful and wise being, and with expression of belief in an initial impulse that is a creation. They explain it by the fact that Newton lived in the beginning of the 18th century when men were ignorant of many of the atomic and chemical and biological processes known today, when science was still tied up with theology. They also claim that the fact that Newton was religious was a hindrance to his science. But then remains the riddle that in the 20th century the Newtonian universe has become Einsteinian universe. Einstein knew at least something about the atomic processes and about the most recent developments of science, and he who had begun as an atheist in his youth was brought to faith by the fact that he arrived at the pinnacle of science. My opponents mentioned with satisfaction Laplace, who said that he had no need of the hypothesis God. First of all, God has been vindicated by the fact that the great Soviet astronomer Tihov begins his book of astronomy with the assertion that we have no more need of hypothesis Laplace. But all apart from this, Laplace was a professing Christian. The authors of the Atheist Handbook are wrong in quoting Descartes in support of their doctrines. Descartes was also a professing Christian. They distort the meaning of his words, giving them a materialistic sense. He wrote, "Give me matter and motion, and I will construct the universe." The words are clear. The existence of the universe requires matter, motion, and an intelligent being to construct it. The words of Descartes are, "Give me matter and motion." Without this me, matter and motion alone would not make a universe. It is only this me which comes from God, who can accomplish great deeds because we have been created as creators. One often wonders about the liberties academicians take in attributing to renowned authors ideas they never intended. But let us leave these men of old and return to our century. Heisenberg, the great atomic physicist, could not have read the Atheist Handbook because he launched an appeal for a union between science and religion. Sir James Jeans, the renowned astronomer, writes in his book, The Mysterious Universe, "The universe begins to look more like a great thought than like a great machine. Mind no longer appears as an accidental intruder in the realm of matter. We are beginning to suspect that we ought rather to hail it as the creator and governor of the realm of matter, not, of course, our individual minds, but the mind in which atoms out of which our individual minds have grown existed as thoughts. We discover that the universe shows evidence of a designing or controlling power that has something in common with our individual minds. We are not so much strangers or intruders in the universe as we first thought." Newton had the disadvantage of belonging to a backward century. That is how the Atheist Handbook explains this religiosity. It was only because of the pressure of his backward milieu that he wrote in his book Optics, "Does it not appear from phenomena that there is a being, incorporeal, living, intelligent, omnipresent, with infinite space, which sees things intimately and thoroughly perceives them and comprehends them wholly by their immediate presence to himself?" But James Jeans belongs to our advanced scientific century, as does Heisenberg. Let us listen to the great psychologist Professor Jung, who also belongs to our century. "During the past 30 years, people from all civilized countries of the earth have consulted me. Among all my patients in their second half of life, that is to say, over 35 years, there has not been one whose problem in the last resort was not that of finding a religious outlook on life. It is safe to say that every one of them fell ill because he had lost that which the living religions of every age have given to their followers, and none of them has been really healed who did not regain his religious outlook." It is not the mentality of a century. It is science which makes men religious. Science in all its spheres. Therefore Kepler wrote centuries ago, "We are thinking God's thoughts after him." And Sir Alistair Hardy, until recently head of Oxford University's zoology department, wrote, "Some power we call God is involved in the process of life. And I believe the living world is as closely linked with theology as it is with physics and chemistry. That the divine element is part of the natural process, not strictly supernatural, but paraphysical." He said something else that is very interesting. "Just as knowledge of biology of sex does not destroy the lover, so a religion linked with science and natural theology need not destroy the rapture of communion with God. Let us go forward to reclaim the ground that has been lost in the world." Yahweh bring you to the truth that Yahweh controls all, and your science, if you are a scientist, is looking in